สร้างเศรษฐกิจคนเศรษฐศาสตร์โดยคณะเศรษฐศาสตร์จุฬาลงกรณ์มหาวิทยาลัย
This is CU Radio, hosted by the Faculty of Economics at Chulalongkorn University. Hello, my name is Chantal Herberholz, and today I'm going to talk about my paper that was published some months ago in SSN Population Health. The title of this paper is We Are Inferior, We Have No Rights, Statelessness and Mental Health Among Ethnic Minorities in Northern Thailand. This study was financially supported by Chulalongkorn University. In 2019, there were about 4.2 million stateless persons globally, as reported by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. However, the world's stateless population is actually thought to be much larger. This is because it's quite challenging to define the stateless population, and therefore it's difficult to collect accurate data. The 1954 Convention relating to the status of stateless persons defines a stateless person, and now I quote, as a person who is not considered as a national by any state under the operation of its law. Stateless persons, such defined, are sometimes also referred to as de jure stateless persons. The 1961 Convention on the Reduction of Statelessness, on the other hand, contains a reference to de facto stateless persons. De facto statelessness is not clearly defined, though. Generally, de facto stateless persons are considered to be persons who lack an effective nationality. Stateless persons face a number of daily environmental stresses because of their specific situation. Not having a legal nationality means that stateless persons are deprived of basic rights. That means often they are not able to move freely, say from one province to the other. They may not be able to access public services such as health services or education services. They may not be able to obtain work, own property, buy a piece of land, and so on and so forth. The literature in this area, however, typically does not focus on stateless persons. Instead, it looks at marginalized groups in a migratory context more generally. These groups may include persons with and without legal nationality. Across these studies, asylum seekers, refugees, and internally displaced persons were found to have poor mental health outcomes. However, these studies recognize that migrant subgroups are rather heterogeneous, and therefore it's extremely difficult to generalize the findings. The determinants of mental health outcomes of forced migrants are classified in the literature into three categories. First, predisplacement characteristics. Second, the circumstances of travel. And third, post-migration conditions. Predisplacement characteristics include socio-demographic characteristics, conflict exposure, and in studies that look at diverse ethnic groups, also ethnicity. Ethnicity is quite a challenging concept. Generally, it comprises attributional and relational characteristics. Attributional characteristics refer to socio-cultural characteristics, whereas relational characteristics, on the other hand, refer to the relations between a group and the society in which it is situated. Now, the second category looks at the circumstances of travel. So included here in this category is, for example, the mode of transportation, the length of travel. Regarding the third category, post-migration conditions, included here are factors such as income, unemployment, proficiency in the host country language, perceived discrimination, and so on and so forth. Statelessness, however, does not only arise in the context of migration. In fact, most stateless persons are stateless in situ. So that is, they consider themselves to be in their own country, either because of birth or long-term residency. In a 2008 paper, Lupkeman, in fact, argued that in situ statelessness can be seen as a form of forced displacement that immobilizes. Thailand has a very large stateless population. In fact, its stateless population ranked 4th worldwide in 2019, according to data from the UNHCR. The stateless population, or the number of recorded persons, stood at about 475,000. These are also referred to as nationalityless persons in the Thai context. So in the Thai context, these are persons without nationality who are registered with the country's civil registry. Nationalityless persons are considered to be habitually resident in Thailand, and they hold a special identification document that starts with number 0. They are permitted to stay in Thailand, and they are given access to certain rights and benefits, such as, for example, access to health services under the health insurance for people with citizenship problems. Nationalityless persons are at risk of statelessness if citizenship is not confirmed by any state. If, however, citizenship is confirmed by the Thai authorities, Thai citizenship will be obtained. There is, however, a second group of persons with citizenship problems in Thailand. These are persons without nationality who do not enjoy the protection that's given to nationalityless persons. So stateless persons, so these persons are referred to as stateless persons, and stateless persons are not recorded in the country's civil registry. So therefore, they do not have a permission to stay in Thailand, which increases the precariousness of their situation. The categorization of stateless persons used in Thailand does not conform to the international legal definition of statelessness, as, for example, provided in the 1954 Convention. However, it aligns with the concept of effective statelessness. And also, it highlights that operationalizing statelessness in practice is difficult. Effective statelessness exists, and now I quote a book chapter that was published by Price in 2017, when persons entitled to citizenship cannot prove it, or such proof is disregarded by government officials. Citizenship problems are particularly widespread among Thailand's ethnic groups, including Akha, Lahu, and Thai people. Akha and Lahu people are often considered to belong to the highland population, whereas Thai people are considered to belong to the lowland population. This distinction, however, is a bit outdated because outmigration from villages and outmigration from rural areas is a common phenomenon in Thailand, also among ethnic groups who have increasingly moved to urban areas. In contrast to the Akha and Lahu people, the Thai people are Thai-speaking. They are part of the Shan, and the Shan are a large ethnic minority group in Myanmar. My research focuses on Lahu, Akha, and Thai person, and it's trying to explore the correlates of mental health among stateless, nationalityless, Akha, Lahu, and Thai persons who are living in northern Thailand. I hypothesize that stateless persons are more likely to have lower mental health than nationalityless persons because of their more precarious situation, And second, that ethnicity affects mental health due to differences in risk factors for mental health. For the purpose of this study, I collected quantitative and qualitative data using a semi-structured questionnaire from 108 respondents. Of the 108 respondents, 44 were stateless persons, so they reported that they do not possess any identification documents, and the remaining 64 respondents were nationality-less respondents who reported that they have the special identification document that starts with number 0. So this special identification document that starts with number 0, so the ID that has a 13-digit identification number that starts with number 0, is used for persons without civil registration records. Now, let me move on to the results. So the data analysis and the details of the data collection are described in the paper. So that paper is an open access paper. So if you're interested, please have a look at it. But allow me now to move on to the results. So I start with the quantitative results first. These were quite interesting because despite the precarious situation of respondents, the mental health status of stateless and nationality-less respondents was quite good overall and comparable to nationally representative mental health survey data. It's important to bear in mind, however, that respondents who participated in this research were living in rather remote villages in Northern Thailand. And importantly, they were mostly living together with their families and not alone. Had I collected the data in urban areas, the results might have been quite different. The quantitative results further weakly indicated that stateless persons are more likely to have poorer mental health than nationality-less persons as hypothesized. Moreover, the quantitative results showed striking differences by ethnicity. Thai and Lahu respondents were more likely to have lower mental health compared to Akha respondents. Now, in terms of the qualitative results, and here I focus on the themes legal status and ethnicity, the importance of legal status, meaning having a 13-digit ID that starts with number 0, was emphasized by respondents. Having such an identification document gave rise to hope. Hope is a motivational factor and therefore impacts mental health. Stateless respondents shared that seeing other people receiving a number 0 card gave them hope that one day their status would change as well. It gave them hope that things were moving. Nationality-less respondents also shared that receiving the number 0 card gave them hope, in the sense that one day their citizenship problems would be resolved and that one day they would finally receive Thai nationality and be recognized as members of Thai society. For them, the number 0 card is a stepping stone. In addition, having the 13-digit ID card was also associated with access to certain rights and benefits. These were acknowledged, but respondents pointed out that the number 0 card does not give the same rights as those attached to a Thai national ID card. Specifically, the respondents pointed out that having the number 0 card does not allow them to use health services under the Universal Coverage Scheme. The Universal Coverage Scheme is well known, and therefore this was particularly felt. So while access to rights and benefits associated with having an identification document were recognized, respondents emphasized that the rights and benefits that were conveyed were not the same as those that come along with nationality. In addition, the qualitative data showed that citizenship problems and ethnicity were deeply intertwined. So the first theme that emerged from the data was perceived stigma. Stigmatization negatively affects mental health, and respondents from all three ethnic groups shared that they had experienced stigmatization. Now I would like to quote what one 19-year-old nationalityless respondent shared. So this respondent said, "I faced stigmatization from primary school throughout high school. Others made remarks on my name, called me names, laughed at me. Sometimes I was constantly bullied. I would like them to know that doing this can make someone really depressed." In addition, Lahu respondents shared that they were stigmatized because of a lack of language proficiency. Stigmatization was accompanied by discrimination. So perceived discrimination was the second theme that emerged from the data. Here, what respondents shared fell into the area of outright harassment, wage discrimination, and discrimination in hiring. Especially Thai respondents shared that they face employment discrimination. So employment discrimination was most vocally pointed out by Thai respondents. The negative impacts of stigmatization and discrimination were actually reinforced, as respondents shared, by not being able or being afraid of taking legal action. Now I would like to quote again, this time a 36-year-old stateless respondent who shared the following. "I have been stigmatized and insulted. They call me a Burmese and say that I will never thrive because they think I can do nothing about it. They know that I cannot sue or file a complaint against them. I have no access to legal rights, so they're not scared to insult me." So this quote shows how not being able to take legal action or being afraid of taking legal action actually worsened the impact of stigmatization and discrimination. The last theme that emerged was a perceived lack of social support. And this was particularly felt by Lahu respondents. So they shared that their villages lacked unity, and that, of course, worsened citizenship problems. Ethnic differences can be explained in terms of relational and attributional characteristics of ethnicity. Let me start with relational characteristics. Highlander groups in general have been of strategic interest to the Thai state, given that Highlanders have been framed to be associated with many problems. These problems range from communist insurgency, opium production, to the depletion of natural resources. So therefore, most efforts, including research, has focused on Highlander groups. Actually, looking at research, relatively little research is available about the lowland Thai or Shan in Thailand. The long-lasting civil war in Shan state actually triggered massive or has triggered massive refugee flows into Thailand since the 1990s. In contrast to other refugees from Myanmar, the Shan, however, were not recognized by the Thai government as displaced persons. Instead, they were considered economic migrants. Many Shan, therefore, ended up as undocumented migrants in Thailand, predominantly working in the agricultural and the construction sectors, as, for example, documented in the 2015 paper by Lutz and Roth. At the same time, because of relatively higher incomes in Thailand, Shan labor migration to Thailand increased in the 1990s. So with these migration flows, it became increasingly difficult to distinguish Shan in Thailand by duration of stay or reason for migration. So that is, it became more and more difficult to distinguish between recent migrants and long-term residents or migrants who came because of conflict and persecution versus migrants who came for economic reasons. So the uncertainties surrounding their status made Thai respondents or Shan respondents particularly prone to stigmatization and discrimination. And this is something that we also, or that I also saw in the scarce literature that focuses on the Shan. Now, regarding the attributional characteristics of ethnicity, it's important to point out that Lahu villages or Lahu people generally have experienced higher geographical remoteness compared to the Akha. So this goes hand in hand with lower living standards, and also this explains why particularly Lahu respondents shared that they experience language difficulties. Moreover, Lahu respondents, they shared that they experience a lack of social support, and a lack of social support is an additional risk factor that affects overall mental health. However, the data that I collected does not allow me to explore the lack of social support in more detail. For the Akha, on the other hand, the situation is a bit different. So while they also live in mountainous areas, yet they do not live in as remote areas as the Lahu. Moreover, as shown in the literature, especially the Akha are very outspoken, and there are a lot of Akha activists who are driving the citizenship movement. So therefore, for Akha respondents, they may have more reason to hope, and therefore have better mental health outcomes compared to, for example, Lahu respondents. Now, these results have to be seen against data collection challenges, and the data collection challenges are the most important limitation of my study. So first of all, due to limited resources, the sample size is relatively small. Bear in mind that I could only collect data from 108 respondents. Also, it's important to point out that there might be a selection bias because the respondents were identified with the help of a non-governmental organization working with people who have citizenship problems. Moreover, it's again important to point out that I collected the data in rather remote areas and not in urban areas. So there are many other limitations, data collection challenges, other limitations. These are spelled out in the paper. Let me now move on to the conclusion of the paper. So first of all, the main contribution of this paper is that it focuses on an understudied and hard-to-reach population. The key finding is that mental health is affected by legal recognition and ethnicity. More specifically, having some form of legal identity as a stepping stone to citizenship matters for the mental health of persons without nationality. Moreover, this paper highlights that it's important to take the ethnic heterogeneity of stateless populations into account. So this, of course, points to the importance of data disaggregation more generally. Overall, this paper concludes that efforts to resolve protracted citizenship problems and close ethnic gaps have to be accelerated. This brings me to the end of my talk. Thank you very much for listening, and bye-bye.